I was in the front row at Dylan's funeral when my phone vibrated. I ignored it. It was my son's last goodbye. But it vibrated again. With shaking hands, I looked at the screen, and the air rushed from my lungs. Mom, don't believe what they're saying. The number was his, Dylan's. I looked up at the casket covered in white roses 10 feet away. No, this can't be happening, I whispered. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought everyone at the funeral could hear it. But for you to clearly understand how it all happened, I need to go back to the beginning of this story. A week earlier, on a rainy Tuesday in March, 2 San Francisco police officers knocked on my door at 6 in the morning. I was still in my robe, making coffee, when I heard the insistent knocking. Through the peephole, I saw the dark blue uniforms, and my stomach tightened. Nothing good comes from police officers knocking on your door at dawn. Mrs. Linda Carter? The older man asked when I opened it. He was about 50, with gray hair and the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much. Yes? My voice came out small, scared. Can I come in? We need to talk about your son, Dylan Carter. Dylan, my heart raced. What happened? Is he okay? Was there an accident? The officers exchanged that look. That look you see in movies but never imagine being directed at you. The look that says, this is going to ruin your life. Mrs. Carter, perhaps you'd better sit down. I didn't sit down. I just stood there, in the kitchen doorway, holding onto the refrigerator handle as if it were the only thing keeping me upright. Your son Dylan, the younger officer began, consulting a notepad, has been identified as having jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge last night, around 11:15 p.m. Witnesses saw a man matching his description climb the railing and... The rest of the words faded to white noise. My knees buckled. They literally collapsed beneath me. The 2 officers caught me before I could hit my head on the tile kitchen floor. No, was all I could say. No, 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 no. They helped me to the couch. Someone gave me water. Someone said things like, we're sorry, and we need you to identify belongings, and a note was found. A note. My Dylan had left a suicide note. Where is he? I managed to ask after an indeterminate amount of time. Where is my son's body? The officers looked at each other again. Mrs. Carter, when someone jumps off the Golden Gate Bridge, the drop is 250 feet. Impact with the water at that speed is fatal in 98% of cases. We rarely recover. Bodies remain in the currents for days, sometimes weeks. There was no body. My son had disappeared into the Pacific Ocean, and I wouldn't even have a body to bury. I broke down. I just collapsed there on the couch, sobbing so violently that I vomited all over the coffee table. The police were kind. They cleaned up the mess. They called someone. I later found out it was Jennifer, my daughter-in-law. Jennifer arrived half an hour later with Lily, my 9-year-old granddaughter. Jennifer was pale, her eyes red, and she was shaking. She fell into my arms and we cried together, 2 women shattered by the same impossible loss. He wouldn't do that. Jennifer sobbed into my shoulder. Linda, he would not do that. Not Dylan. Not my Dylan. But he did. Somehow, my son had reached a point of despair so deep that the only way out he saw was to jump off a bridge. The next few days were a nightmarish blur. I slowly uncovered what had happened in the previous months, things Dylan had hidden from me with meticulous care. He had lost everything in an investment fraud. Dylan worked as a financial broker at Thompson & Associates in downtown San Francisco. Apparently his boss, a man named Richard Thompson, had been operating a Ponzi scheme for years. When it finally collapsed in January, it took with it not only clients' investments, but also the personal savings of several employees, including Dylan. My son had lost $300,000, all the money he and Jennifer had saved for a bigger house, for Lily's college tuition, for retirement. Everything. All gone in one night when the FBI arrested Thompson and froze all his accounts. And worse, Dylan had advised friends and family to invest with Thompson. People now blamed him, sued him, and insulted him in the streets. His professional reputation was destroyed. The firm closed. Dylan was unemployed, bankrupt, and being sued by 5 different people. "He didn't tell me anything," Jennifer cried when she came to visit me 2 days after that terrible Tuesday. "Linda, he kept it a secret from me. He pretended everything was fine. He'd leave in the morning as if he were going to work, but the firm had been closed for weeks. I only found out when the lawyers started showing up with lawsuits." "And the note?" I asked, my voice hoarse from crying. "What did it say?" Jennifer hesitated, then pulled a folded piece of paper from her purse. The officers had given her a copy. The original was in evidence. I unfolded it with trembling hands. It was Dylan's handwriting, that crooked, sloppy handwriting that had never improved even after years of school. "I can't take it anymore. I've destroyed everything. I've destroyed everyone. Jennifer, Lily, Mom, you deserve better than a failure like me. I'm sorry. I love you. But there's no way out. D." Those words, those damned words written by my son's hand, admitting defeat, giving up on life. I sobbed until I had no more tears. The funeral was scheduled for the following Friday. Without a body, it would be a memorial service. We chose Lakeside Memorial Chapel, a small but beautiful chapel in Colma, the city of the dead, just south of San Francisco, where 73% of the area is cemeteries. I chose the flowers. White roses, Dylan's favorite since he was little, when he used to pick roses from his grandmother's garden to give me on Mother's Day. I chose the songs. Somewhere Over the Rainbow, he used to sing to Lily when she was a baby. I chose every detail because it was the last thing I could do for my son. Jennifer insisted on a closed casket, even without a body. "For Lily," she explained. "She needs something concrete to say goodbye to. She needs to see a casket, flowers, something physical." It made sense. Lily had been in shock ever since she found out. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just sat there, staring into space, hugging a teddy bear Dylan had given her for her last birthday. My oldest daughter, Sophie, arrived from Los Angeles on Thursday night. Sophie was 35, 3 years older than Dylan, and she was everything he wasn't. Successful, confident, flawless. A corporate lawyer at a major firm, divorced, childless, living in Venice Beach in a house worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. "Mom." She hugged me at the airport, and for a moment, it was like we were a normal family facing a normal tragedy. But there was something about Sophie's embrace, something performative, measured, as if she were fulfilling a duty rather than feeling a loss. "Are you okay?" I asked, studying her perfect face, her makeup flawless even after a flight. "I'm suing," she replied, in that controlled professional lawyer's voice. "Dylan and I haven't been close in years, you know, but still, it's shocking." They weren't close was an understatement. Dylan and Sophie had had a huge fight 2 years ago about something. They never knew exactly what, and they both refused to talk about it with me, and they'd barely spoken since. Family gatherings were tense, Christmas was an ordeal, and now Dylan was dead, and any chance of reconciliation had gone with him to the bottom of the Pacific. On the morning of the funeral Friday, I woke up at 5 in the morning after not sleeping at all. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the times I'd failed as a mother, all the signs I'd missed, how Dylan had hidden his despair so well that I hadn't seen it until it was too late. I lost my husband, Robert, 5 years ago. Pancreatic cancer took him 6 months from diagnosis to death. I thought it was the worst pain I could ever feel. I was wrong. Losing a husband is terrible. But losing a child? A child you carried in your womb, gave birth to, raised, loved with every fiber of your being? It's a pain that has no name. It's a pain that tears you apart and leaves a hole that will never, ever heal. I got ready on autopilot. The black dress I wore to Robert's funeral, black flats because I didn't trust my legs, minimal makeup because I knew I'd cry and ruin everything anyway. I put on the necklace Dylan gave me last Mother's Day, a simple silver heart engraved with "Best Mom." Sophie picked me up at 9. Jennifer and Lily would meet us there. The chapel was full when we arrived. Dylan had more friends than I'd imagined, colleagues from the firm that closed, people from the gym where he trained, parents of Lily's friends from school, neighbors, acquaintances, all dressed in black, all with those expressions of pity and discomfort. The pastor, a man who had never met Dylan but whom Jennifer hired, began the service with general words about loss and faith and, "He's in a better place now." I didn't listen. I just looked at that coffin and thought, my baby, my boy, my Dylan, who was afraid of the dark as a little boy, who broke his arm at 8 falling from a tree, who got his driver's license at 16 and crashed my car a week later, who graduated with a degree in economics, who married Jennifer in a beautiful ceremony in Napa Valley, who cried when Lily was born, holding that tiny baby as if she were the most precious thing in the universe. How had that boy gotten to a point where jumping off a bridge seemed like the only way out? Where had I gone wrong? Jennifer stood up to speak. She was devastated, visibly ill, her hands shaking as she held the paper with her notes. "Dylan was the love of my life," she began, her voice breaking. "We met 12 years ago when we were both in line at Starbucks and he spilled coffee on my white blouse. He was so mortified, so apologetic, that I couldn't help but laugh. That was Dylan, kind, thoughtful, always caring about others." She paused, wiping away tears. "When things started falling apart these past few months, he tried to protect me. He hid everything from me because he didn't want me to worry. It was so typical of him, always putting everyone else before himself. Right up until the end." Her voice broke completely, and she couldn't continue. Sophie stood up and helped her back to the bench. Then it was my turn. I stood up on shaky legs, walked to the pulpit, looked out at that sea of sad faces, and the words just wouldn't come. How do I summarize 32 years of love in a few paragraphs? How do I explain what it's like to be the mother of someone who is no longer here? Dylan, I began, my voice already cracking, was my youngest, my boy. From the day he was born, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, with that loud cry that woke the entire hospital, he was special, intense, passionate. When Dylan loved something, he loved it with everything he had. I looked at the casket through tears. He loved Jennifer. He loved Lily more than life itself. And I know he didn't want to leave us. I know he was hurting in ways we couldn't see. And that will haunt me for the rest of my life. My voice broke completely. I couldn't speak anymore. Sophie came to get me, guided me back to the bench, and held me as I sobbed. And it was then, in that moment of absolute devastation, that I felt my cell phone vibrate in my coat pocket. At first, I ignored it. Who would have the audacity to call me during my son's funeral? But it vibrated again, and again. With hands shaking with irritation and tears, I took my phone out of my pocket, ready to turn it off completely. And then I saw the screen. 3 unread messages, all from Dylan's number. My world stopped spinning. With cold, clumsy fingers, I opened the messages. "Mom, don't believe what they're saying. I didn't jump off the bridge. I'm still alive." The cell phone slipped from my hands and fell to the wooden floor of the chapel with a loud sound that made several people turn around. "Mom, what happened?" Sophie insisted, trying to grab my phone again. "You're white as a sheet." I didn't respond. I just kept staring at those 3 impossible messages on my iPhone screen. Messages from Dylan's number. From the phone the police said was found in his clothes left on the bridge. Beautiful? Jennifer leaned toward me, genuine concern on her face. "Do you need water? Are you feeling sick?" With hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the device, I turned the screen to Jennifer. She looked, she read, and then her face changed. First confusion, then shock, then something I can only describe as pure horror. "What?" Jennifer practically screamed, snatching the phone from my hands. Several people in the chapel turned to look. The pastor stopped speaking mid-sentence about comfort in difficult times. "Jennifer, what?" Sophie began. "Look at this." Jennifer was on her feet now, hysterical, showing my phone to Sophie, to the people around her, her voice rising with each word. Someone is texting from Dylan's phone, saying he's alive." A murmur spread through the chapel like wildfire. People whispered, stood up for a better look, took out their own phones. Sophie grabbed my phone and read the messages, her lawyerly face tightening into that professional, controlled expression she wore when she was processing difficult information. "That's impossible," she said firmly. "Mom, someone hacked Dylan's number. That's—" "How can someone be so cruel?" Jennifer screamed, and now she was really crying, not those silent tears of grief, but violent, desperate sobs. "What kind of monster does this? At his funeral? In front of his daughter?" She was right. Lily was staring at everything with those wide, frightened eyes, not understanding what was happening, but clearly terrified by her mother's reaction. The pastor stepped down from the pulpit, trying to defuse the situation. "Mrs. Carter, please, perhaps it would be best. Someone is playing with my husband's death." Jennifer was completely out of control now. She grabbed my phone from Sophie's hands, and before anyone could stop her, began frantically pressing buttons. I'm going to delete this. I can't see this. Jennifer, wait!" I tried to grab the phone back, but she pulled away. "No, this is sick. This is perverse. Who would do this?" She was deleting the messages, one by one with furious fingers. How can someone be so inhumane? "Jennifer, stop!" Sophie finally managed to snatch the phone from her. "You're erasing evidence. If someone really hacked his number, the police will need to see—" "Evidence of what?" Jennifer screamed. "That there are evil people in the world who enjoy torturing grieving families? I already knew that." The chapel was in utter chaos now. Half the people were standing. Some were trying to calm Jennifer. Others were looking at me with that mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. Lily had begun to cry silently. And me? I sat there in shock, trying to process what had just happened. Messages from Dylan saying he was alive, and Jennifer had erased everything. The anger started as a spark in my chest. Small, controllable, but growing. "You deleted it," I said, my voice strangely calm considering the hurricane inside me. "You deleted the messages." "Linda, I'm so sorry, Jennifer was shaking now, hugging herself. "I panicked. I couldn't see those words on the screen, pretending to be him. They were from his number," I insisted, standing up. "From his cell phone. How do you explain that?" "It's a hacker!" Jennifer practically spat the word. "Linda, for God's sake, do you really think Dylan is alive? That he would fake his own death? That he would let us suffer like this?" Sophie put her hand on my shoulder. "Mom, sit down. Breathe. Jennifer's right. Hackers can easily clone numbers these days. It's cruel, it's inhumane, but it happens." "How do you know?" I pulled away from her touch. "How do you two know so surely?" "Because I'm a lawyer." Sophie raised her voice for the first time, and some people flinched. She took a deep breath, composing herself. "Mom, I see these cases all the time. Scammers who target vulnerable families after deaths. They access online obituaries, obtain phone numbers, clone them, and then send messages to extort money or simply cause distress. But they didn't ask for money," I argued, my own voice rising. "The messages just said he was alive." "Still," Jennifer said bitterly, "the next message would probably be, 'Send $10,000 to this account, and I'll prove I'm alive.' It's always like this. They hook you with hope and then destroy you financially." I looked between my daughter-in-law and my daughter. Both so certain, so convincing, so united in their explanation. "I want my phone back," he said to Sophie. "Mother, now!" My voice echoed in the silent chapel. Sophie reluctantly handed me the phone back. I opened the messages. As Jennifer had said, all 3 messages had been deleted. The conversation with Dylan was empty now, as if those impossible words had never existed. Anger exploded. "You had no right!" I yelled at Jennifer, no longer caring who was watching. "Those messages were mine, sent to me, and you just deleted them? I was protecting you," Jennifer yelled back, "protecting us from whoever's doing this. Or you were hiding something." The words came out before I could filter them. The silence that followed was absolute. Jennifer looked at me like I'd hit her. What did you just say?" "Mom, you're not thinking straight," Sophie said quickly, stepping between us. Grief is making you say things you don't mean. I know exactly what I'm saying. I pulled away from her too. My son texts me that he's alive, and you two immediately have explanations, delete evidence, tell me I'm crazy for questioning. No one said you're crazy, Sophie said in that condescending lawyer voice that always irritated me. We said you're in shock, in mourning, vulnerable to manipulation. I'm not vulnerable, my voice broke. I'm his mother. What if he's really trying to tell me something? Jennifer covered her face with her hands, sobbing. I can't take this anymore. I can't take it. Lily, who had been quiet all this time, suddenly spoke in that small, childish voice. Grandma, is Daddy alive? We all stopped. We looked at that 9-year-old child, hugging her teddy bear, hope and fear fighting on her little face. And I didn't know what to answer. Lily, honey. Jennifer quickly went to her, kneeling down. No, honey. Daddy's not alive. Someone very bad is pretending to be him. But it's not him, okay? It's not Daddy. But what if it is? Lily whispered. It's not, Jennifer practically screamed, and Lily started crying for real now. The pastor, who had been watching everything in silent shock, finally intervened. Perhaps it would be best if we ended the service early. The families clearly need privacy to process. No, I said firmly. No, let's finish. Let's finish my son's funeral. And then I'll find out who's behind these messages. And when I do, my voice dropped dangerously low. They'll wish they'd never been born. The rest of the funeral passed in a blur. People avoided my gaze. The pastor rushed the last rites. There was no reception afterward. Everyone just fled, uncomfortable with the drama they had witnessed. In the chapel parking lot, as people dispersed to their cars, Sophie caught up with me. Mom, you're going home with me, okay? I don't want you alone right now. I'm fine, I lied. You're not. And you need to accept that. What, Sophie? I turned to her. That my son is dead? I already accepted that a week ago when the police knocked on my door. But now someone is using his phone to text me, and I'm going to find out who and why. They're scammers, Sophie repeated with exaggerated patience. Probably someone from another country. It happens after every funeral that gets public notice. Dylan's was in the San Francisco Chronicle, remember? Anyone could have seen it, gotten information. Information like his cell phone number? I interrupted. How would they get that? Sophie sighed. Mom, I know you want answers, but sometimes there's no good explanation for random evil. Sometimes horrible people do horrible things because they can. And sometimes, he said slowly, very convenient explanations are given too quickly. What does this mean? It means you and Jennifer seemed very prepared with your explanations about hackers and scammers, almost as if you already knew what to say. Sophie's face hardened. Are you accusing me of something? I'm saying it's weird. What's strange, Mother, is you looking for conspiracy where there is none. Her voice was icy now. Your son is dead. It's horrible. It's unfair. But it's reality. And the sooner you accept it, the sooner you can begin to heal. Don't tell me how to heal. My voice echoed in the nearly empty parking lot. Don't tell me how to deal with this when you've barely shed a tear since you arrived. Sophie recoiled as if I'd slapped her. How dare you? You and Dylan haven't spoken in 2 years, I continued, my anger finally finding a target. You didn't even come visit him when you heard about his financial problems. And now you show up at the funeral with ready-made explanations and telling me to get over it? I'm trying to help you, Sophie yelled back, trying to protect you from yourself, from clinging to false hopes that will only hurt you more. Or are you trying to make me stop asking questions? I threw back. Questions about what? You think that Jennifer, what exactly? That we killed Dylan and now we're sending fake messages for what purpose? When she put it like that, it sounded ridiculous, paranoid, delusional. But still, something didn't add up. I don't know, I admitted, anger giving way to exhaustion. I just know something is wrong, very wrong. Sophie sighed, her anger also dissipating. Mom, you're processing trauma. It's normal to look for patterns, to look for meaning, but sometimes tragedy is just tragedy, random and meaningless. She came over and hugged me, and for a moment I allowed myself to sink into the embrace of my surviving daughter. "Go home," she said softly. "Rest. I'll call later to check on you." "And Mom?" "Block that number. If they get any more messages, don't respond. Just let it go." She got into her rental car and drove away, leaving me alone in the parking lot. I spent that entire weekend in the empty house staring at the phone like it was a venomous snake about to strike. Sophie called twice a day, always asking the same questions. "Have you eaten anything? Taken your meds? Got any more messages?" I didn't receive it. The silence was somehow worse than the messages, because now I was waiting, anticipating. Every time the phone made any sound, an email notification, a weather alert, anything, my heart raced. Jennifer came to visit me on Saturday, bringing Lily. My granddaughter was still too quiet, hugging that teddy bear like it was a lifeline. We made cookies together in my kitchen, but it was mechanical and joyless. Lily just mixed the dough, staring into space. "She's not sleeping well," Jennifer confessed while Lily was in the bathroom. "She wakes up in the middle of the night crying. She keeps asking for her daddy." Her eyes were red and sunken. "And I don't know what to say to her, Linda. How do I explain to a 9-year-old why her daddy chose to leave us?" There was no good answer to that. On Monday, I returned to work. I had been a nurse at UCSF Medical Center for 28 years, working in the oncology department. My colleagues were kind, cautious, treating me as if I were made of glass. They offered whispered condolences, gentle touches on the shoulder, and pitying looks. I hated it. I hated being the woman who lost her son. I hated seeing pity in everyone's eyes. I hated how conversations stopped when I walked into a room. But work was a distraction. Cancer patients didn't care about my grief. They had their own battles. And there was something almost comforting about caring for people who were dying. At least I could do something for them. I couldn't do anything for Dylan. On Tuesday night, I was washing dishes after a dinner I'd barely touched when my phone vibrated on the counter. My heart leaped into my throat. I dropped a plate into the sink with a loud clatter. With soapy, shaking hands, I quickly dried them on a dish towel and picked up the phone. An unread message from Dylan. The world around me went silent except for the sound of my own blood rushing through my veins. I opened the message with fingers that barely obeyed my brain. "Mom, it's me. I know it's hard to believe, but I need you to believe. Remember when I was 7 and I broke Grandma Margaret's porcelain vase, the blue one she brought from Portugal? You said you broke it to protect me from getting scolded. She never knew the truth. Remember the crescent-shaped scar on my right knee? The bike accident at the Kowalski's house when I was 10 and you took me to the emergency room at 2 a.m.? You held my hand while they stitched me up. There were 12 stitches. You counted each one with me. Mom, I am alive." The phone slipped from my hands and fell to the tile kitchen floor with a clatter that seemed to echo throughout the entire house. I stood there, tap water still running, staring at the device on the floor as if it were an alien artifact. Grandma Margaret's vase. No one knew this story. It was a secret between Dylan and me. My mother-in-law had died 15 years ago, and I never knew it was her 7-year-old grandson who broke her precious vase during a lively afternoon of play in the living room. I had taken the blame. I had received a half-hour lecture about responsibility, and Dylan had hugged me afterward, crying, saying, "When I grow up, I'll buy Grandma another vase, I promise." He never bought it. Margaret died before him, and that scar. I automatically reached for my memory. I remembered that frightened phone call from the Kowalskis. Dylan had crashed his bike into a barbed wire fence, his knee split open, blood everywhere. I ran the 3 blocks there barefoot, still in my nightgown, because I didn't waste time changing. At the hospital, Dylan was terrified. Only 10 years old, shaking, afraid of the needles. I held his hand so tightly that it had fingernail marks afterward, and I counted each stitch the doctor gave. 1. Deep breath, love. 2. You're being so brave. 3. 12 points in total. How would anyone know that? I picked up the phone from the floor with hands shaking so violently I almost dropped it again. I reread the message, and again, and again. I am alive. No, I whispered to the empty kitchen. No, this can't be real. Dylan is dead. The police said so. There was evidence. There was... What exactly was there? I forced myself to think rationally. What had the police really told me? Witnesses saw a man jump off the Golden Gate Bridge, a man matching Dylan's description, in the dark, at 11:15 p.m. How much can someone really see in the dark? Dylan's clothes were found on the bridge, his jacket, his wallet, his cell phone. But what about the body? There was no body. We rarely recover bodies, the police officer had said. The currents are strong, the ocean is vast. And the identification? How were they so sure it was Dylan if there was no body? My mind was racing now, connecting dots, seeing inconsistencies that in the haze of initial shock I hadn't questioned. Could it be? No. It was madness. A delusional conspiracy of a mother in denial. But those details, the vase, the scar, the 12 stitches, how would anyone know? Unless Dylan had told Jennifer. Couples share childhood stories. It's natural, she might know. What if Jennifer told someone else? A hacker? A scammer? But why? What purpose would it have? Or maybe Dylan had posted something on social media years ago. A photo of the scar with a funny caption. A comment about the vase's history. Maybe it was all there, publicly available, and I just hadn't remembered. Or maybe it really was Dylan. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Should I respond? Or was this exactly what the hacker, scammer, monster wanted? To engage me, to make me believe. But what if it really was him? With shaking hands, I typed, "If you're Dylan, prove it another way." I sent it before I could think better of it. Minutes passed, long, agonizing minutes. Then another message arrived. "I can't give any more proof now. It's not safe. But Mom, you know me. You know my heart. I'm telling the truth." Frustration exploded inside me. I quickly typed, "This is not proof. Anyone could write this. Call me, now. Let me hear your voice." The answer came almost immediately. "Impossible. I can't make calls safely. Please, I just need you to trust me." I threw the phone on the counter in anger. "This is not enough!" I yelled into the empty kitchen. If Dylan was really alive, why couldn't he call? Why all this obscurity? Why not just go home and end it all? Unless you couldn't. Unless he was in danger. Or unless this was all an elaborate lie and I was being manipulated. I picked up my phone again and reread the messages. Those specific details continued to haunt me. The vase, the scar, the stitches. But the more I thought, the more holes I found in the story. Jennifer would definitely know about the scar. Dylan had probably told her about the accident, and the vase. Maybe he'd mentioned it in casual conversation over the years of their marriage. And even if he hadn't told her, Sophie might have known. She was 13 when the bike accident happened. She was home when we got back from the hospital. She'd seen the stitches. She'd heard the story. Sophie could have told someone, or Sophie could be sending the messages herself. No, that was a ridiculous accusation. Why would my own daughter do that? But then, why had she been so quick to explain everything at the funeral? So prepared with the hacker theory? I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. I was getting paranoid, suspicious of everyone. That's what happens when you don't know who to trust. That's what happens when everything you thought was true is suddenly in question. The doorbell rang, making me jump. My heart raced. It was almost 10 o'clock at night. Who could it be? Through the peephole, I saw Jennifer standing on the porch, hugging herself against the chill of the San Francisco night. My stomach clenched. The phone was still on the counter with messages open. I quickly closed the app and put my phone in my pocket before opening the door. "Jennifer, it's late. Is everything okay? Where's Lily?" "At my mom's house," Jennifer said, and her voice was strange, tense. "Linda, can I come in?" We need to talk. I stepped aside, letting her pass. My phone felt like it weighed a ton in my pocket. Jennifer walked in, but didn't sit down. She stood in the middle of the room, looking at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. You have received more messages. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. What makes you think that? Linda, please. Jennifer sighed. I've known you for 12 years. I can read your face. You look different, agitated, confused. I didn't answer. I just stood there, my hand unconsciously going to my pocket where my phone was. Jennifer saw the movement. Her eyes narrowed. Show me. Jennifer, show me. Her voice rose, then she took a deep breath, controlling herself. I'm sorry, Linda. It's just I got texts, too, from his number, and it's driving me crazy. I need to know what they sent you. Had she received messages, too? What did the messages say? I asked cautiously. That he was alive. That it was all a mistake. Jennifer covered her face with her hands. And for a second, a stupid, desperate second, I wanted to believe it. But then I thought, what would that mean? That Dylan faked his own death? That he deliberately let us suffer? What kind of man does that? What a man indeed, I agreed quietly. That's why I deleted the messages, Jennifer continued. Because I couldn't bear to look at those lies. But Linda, if you received more, we need to go to the police. We need to track down whoever is doing this and make it stop. She had a point. If this was really a scammer, the police should be involved. But Dylan, or whoever it was, said it wasn't safe. Show me your messages first, he said. You said you deleted them, but you must have screenshots, something. Jennifer hesitated. I don't have it. I deleted it all on impulse. I wasn't thinking straight. How convenient. The words came out colder than he intended. Jennifer recoiled as if I'd hit her. What did you just say? Nothing. Sorry. No, tell me. Jennifer took a step toward me. Do you think I'm lying? Do you think I haven't received messages? Or worse, do you think I'm sending the messages? I didn't say that. But you're thinking. Tears welled up in Jennifer's eyes. My God, Linda, my husband died, my daughter's father, and you're accusing me of what exactly? I'm not accusing anyone, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Then show me the messages you received, now, or I'll think you're making this all up. We stood there, staring at each other, the tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. Slowly, I took my phone out of my pocket. I opened my messages. I turned the screen to Jennifer. She read silently. Her face revealed nothing. When she finished, she looked at me. Grandma Margaret's vase, she said quietly. Dylan told me that story 3 years ago when we visited her grave. He thought it was funny how you always covered it up. My heart sank. And the scar, Jennifer continued. Of course I know about it. It's right there on his knee every time he wears shorts. He told me about the accident, the stitches, how you held his hand. So anyone could have written these messages. Anyone Dylan could have told these stories to. You see, Jennifer said, handing me back the phone. It's information that a lot of people could know. It's not as deep a secret as it seems. She was right. Of course she was. But then why was my instinct still screaming that something was wrong? Linda, Jennifer grabbed my shoulders. I understand. I understand the temptation to believe. Because I feel it too. But we have to accept reality. Dylan is dead, and someone cruel is playing with us. What if he's not? The words were out before I could stop them. What if he really is alive? Jennifer looked at me for a long moment. Then she shook her head sadly. Then where is he? Why doesn't he come home? Why would he make Lily cry every night? Why would he let me plan the funeral, pick out the flowers, bury an empty casket? Her voice broke. If Dylan is alive and chose to let us believe he was dead, then he's a monster. And I didn't marry a monster. She was right. Everything she said made perfect sense. But why then couldn't I accept it? Jennifer released my shoulders and walked to the door. She paused, looked back. Block this number, Linda. Please. For you. For me. For Lily. We need to move on. She left, closing the door softly. I stood alone in the room, holding my phone, feeling doubt consume me like poison. Or Dylan was alive. Or I was being cruelly manipulated. And honestly, I didn't know which option was more terrifying. I looked at my phone, at the messages that might be from him. Or not. Sophie said they were scammers. Jennifer said it was information anyone could know. The police said Dylan was dead. But my heart? My mother's heart told me something was wrong. The next morning, I woke up determined. Doubt had kept me awake all night, tossing and turning, staring at the ceiling in the dark. At 5 a.m, I gave up on sleep. If Dylan was really dead, as everyone said, then I needed concrete proof. Proof that would make me accept it and move on. And if there was any possibility, any slim chance that he was alive, then I needed to find out. I called in sick to work. Technically, it wasn't a lie. I was sick with worry, with fear, with confusion. At 9 o'clock sharp, I parked in front of the San Francisco Central Police Station, a gray concrete building that looked as welcoming as a prison, which, technically, was a prison inside. At the front desk, I asked to speak to Detective Marcus Hayes, the same one who had come to my door that dreadful Tuesday morning. I waited 40 minutes on a hard plastic chair, watching police come and go, criminals being processed, families crying. Finally, a uniformed police officer called out to me, "Ms. Carter, Detective Hayes will see you now." I followed her down a narrow hallway to a small room with a metal table, 2 chairs, and no windows. Detective Hayes sat, shuffling through papers, a steaming mug of coffee beside him. He stood up when I entered. "Mrs. Carter, please have a seat." "Thank you for having me," I began, sitting down on the cold metal chair. "Of course. What can I do for you?" His voice was professional but gentle, the voice of someone accustomed to dealing with people in mourning. "I need you to reopen the investigation into my son's death." Hayes paused, coffee mug in the air, looking at me with that expression I was getting tired of seeing. Pity. So much pity. "Mrs. Carter," he began carefully, "I understand that it is difficult to accept." "It's not about acceptance," I interrupted. "It's about the evidence, or the lack thereof." Hayes sighed and set the mug down. "Okay, what specifically is worrying you?" "There was no body." "Correct. As I explained at the time, when someone jumps off the Golden Gate, recovery of the body is rare. The currents are extremely strong. The ocean is vast. Bodies are swept out to sea, sink, or are, well, marine life." "So how were you so sure it was Dylan?" "Witnesses saw a man matching his description jump. His clothes, wallet, and cell phone were found at the scene. And," Hayes paused, opening a folder in front of him, "we had confirmation of fingerprints." "From where? If there was no body?" Hayes flipped through some papers. "The fingerprints ran through the system. Your son was registered with the DMV and the professional licensing system. The prints matched." "But how did you collect prints if there was no body to collect?" Hayes looked at me with confusion. "We didn't. We compared his prints on file with, sorry, let me check." He read the documents more closely. "With the prints provided by the family." My heart started beating faster. "What family? I didn't provide fingerprints." "It says here they were provided by..." Hayes turned the page. "Jennifer Carter, the victim's wife. She brought in personal items of his, a hairbrush, a cup, objects that bore clear fingerprints. Our lab extracted them and confirmed the identity. Jennifer had provided the fingerprints. Jennifer who insisted on quick cremation. Jennifer who deleted the messages twice." "And the body?" I asked, my voice sounding strange. "You said it was DNA confirmed. How can that be if there was no body?" Hayes frowned, returning to his papers. "Wait, let me..." He read silently for a long moment. "Interesting. Actually, there's no mention of DNA testing here. The identification was based purely on fingerprints and belongings found on the bridge. So there was no body, there was no DNA, just fingerprints that my daughter-in-law provided. Ms. Carter, I understand your concern, but this is standard procedure in cases where there is no body. We use circumstantial evidence, witnesses, personal belongings, fingerprints on file. What if she lied? The words came out before I could stop them. Hayes looked at me for a long moment. Lied about what, exactly? What if the prints she provided weren't Dylan's? What if she planted his belongings on the bridge? What if— Mrs. Carter, stop. Hayes held up his hand. I know you're grieving. I know this is hard to accept. But are you suggesting that your daughter-in-law— What? Faked her own husband's death? Why? What possible motive could she have? I don't know, I admitted, feeling tears of frustration burn my eyes. I just know something's wrong. With all due respect, what's wrong is that your child is dead, Hayes said, not cruelly, but firmly. And your brain is looking for patterns, looking for explanations, looking for anything that makes sense of the pain. It's normal. It's human. But it's not real. But the messages— Ah, yes, the messages. Hayes leaned forward. Your daughter, Sophie, called me yesterday. She said you were getting messages from scammers pretending to be Dylan. Had Sophie called him? Mrs. Carter, it happens. More than I'd like to admit. Fraudsters scour obituaries, access personal information from social media, clone phone numbers. Then they target vulnerable families. It's cruel. It's disgusting, but it's common. But they know things, I insisted. Specific details about Dylan's childhood. Things only he would know. Like what? I hesitated. Telling the detective seemed to make it all more real, more official. A story about him breaking a vase as a child. A specific scar. Medical details. Hayes nodded patiently. And your son never shared these stories with anyone? Never posted about them online? Never told his wife, friends, co-workers? Well, he probably told Jennifer. Exactly. And if she knows, other people might know. Information leaks, Mrs. Carter, especially in the digital age. Scammers are surprisingly good at research. Everything he said made sense. Perfect, logical sense. Linda, in 23 years of doing this work, I've seen many families in denial. I've seen mothers who swore their children were murdered when it was clearly suicide. I've seen wives who insisted their husbands were kidnapped when in fact they just ran away. Grief does strange things to our perception of reality. So, you're not going to reopen the investigation? There is no investigation to reopen. The case is closed. Suicide by jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. No evidence of foul play, no reason to suspect anything other than a terrible tragedy. Even with the messages? Even with the messages, which, again, are clearly from scammers. Block the number, report it to the operator, and move on. I stood up, legs shaking. Thank you for your time, Detective. I drove home on autopilot, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. Jennifer provided fingerprints. Jennifer insisted on a speedy cremation. Jennifer deleted the messages. Jennifer, stop. Stop thinking like that. Jennifer is Dylan's wife, Lily's mother. She was suffering too. She wasn't the villain, or was it? I got home at 2 p.m, mentally exhausted despite not having done anything physically strenuous. I just wanted to shower, take a sleeping pill, and shut my mind off for a few hours. I was taking the keys out of the ignition when I realized something. The front door was ajar. My heart raced. I was absolutely certain I'd locked it when I left that morning. I always did. It was a habit I'd had for years living alone. Slowly, I got out of the car, looking around the quiet neighborhood. It was 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. Most people were at work. The street was empty. I approached the door carefully. It was about 2 inches open. I pushed it gently. Hello? I called, my voice shaking. Is anyone there? Silence. I walked in slowly, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it. The living room looked normal. The kitchen looked normal too. Nothing out of place. Maybe I really hadn't locked the door. Maybe in the morning's mental confusion, I simply forgot. And then I heard a sound coming from the living room. A small, muffled sob. I froze. Who's there? My voice came out louder now, trying to sound confident despite the terror. Another hiccup. It came from behind the sofa, With legs that felt like they were made of lead, I walked around the piece of furniture. And there, curled up on the floor, hugging her teddy bear, was Lily. My 9-year-old granddaughter, alone in my house, crying silently. "Lily!" I fell to my knees beside her. "Honey, what are you doing here? How did you get in? Where's your mother?" Lily looked at me with those huge green eyes, Dylan's eyes, filled with tears and fear. "Grandma," she whispered, "I had to tell you, but I couldn't at my house. Mom might hear there." My blood ran cold. "Tell me what, love? What happened?" Lily glanced at the door, as if checking that no one had followed her. Then she leaned closer to me and whispered so softly I could barely hear, "I saw Daddy." The world stopped turning. What? "I saw Daddy," Lily repeated, tears streaming down her face. "Yesterday when Mommy picked me up from school. There was a black car parked across the street, and I saw him. Grandma, I saw his face through the window. It was Daddy." My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would explode. "Lily, darling, are you sure? Sometimes when we really miss someone." "I know it was him!" Lily almost screamed, then covered her mouth with her hands, terrified she'd spoken out loud. She kept whispering, "I know my dad, Grandma. It was him. He was looking at me, and when I waved, he shook his head, like telling me no." Tears were streaming down my face now, too. I told Mommy," Lily continued, trembling. "Mommy, look, it's Daddy." And she looked, and she turned all white, and then she grabbed my arm really hard. "Look, it still hurts." She showed me her arm. There were finger marks, little purple bruises. And she said, "It's not your daddy, Lily. He's dead. Dead. If you keep making up stories, you're going to put him in real danger." My mind was racing. Jennifer had seen it too. She'd seen Dylan in the car and, "Mommy took me home," Lily was sobbing now, "and she made me promise that I would never, ever tell anyone what I saw. That if I did, something bad would happen to Daddy. That he would really die this time." "But Grandma!" Lily clutched me, small nails digging into my arms. "What if he's not dead? What if he needs help? Mommy said if I told anyone he would die, but what if she's lying? What if she's the one hurting him?" "Lily, shh." I hugged her tightly, my mind in utter chaos. "It's okay. You were right to tell me." "Mommy's going to be mad," Lily cried into my shoulder. "I won't let anything happen to you," I promised, but my own voice was shaking. It was real. Dylan was alive. And Jennifer was involved in keeping him hidden. And she had threatened her own daughter. "Lily," I cupped her face in my hands. "How did you get here?" "I took the bus," she sniffed. "Mommy thinks I'm at school. I skipped school. I know it's wrong, but I had to tell you." "You did the right thing," I repeated. "But now we have to be very, very careful. Your mother can't know you told me. Understand?" Lily nodded, eyes wide with fear. "I'm going to take you back to school now. You're going to go in through the back entrance, go to the bathroom, clean yourself up, and act like nothing happened. Can you do that?" "I think so." "And Lily, anything weird your mom does, anything that scares you, you call me. No matter what time, okay?" "Okay." In the car, driving Lily back to school, my mind was racing. I dropped Lily off at school, watched her walk around the side of the building, and then drove home with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. From now on, I no longer trust the police. I use my savings to hire Raymond Torres, a private investigator recommended by a friend. Raymond is skeptical at first. "Ms. Carter, in 20 years of doing this, I've seen many mothers in denial. But I'll investigate." He begins by analyzing the messages, Dylan's history, and his finances. A week later, he calls me urgently. "Linda, I found something. The fingerprints used to identify the body? They were emailed digitally to the coroner, not collected from the body. Someone sent Dylan's archived prints from the database." My heart leaps. It means there may never have been a body, or the body wasn't his. For the first time, I have real hope. Dylan may be alive. When we first met at his Daly City office, a small space on the second floor of a commercial building between a nail shop and a Thai restaurant. Mrs. Carter. He shook my hand firmly. My friend Carol told me about your case. Please, sit down. So, he sat behind his desk, picking up a notepad. Tell me everything, from the beginning. And I told them. Everything. The knock on the police's door, the supposed suicide, the funeral, the impossible messages, the suspicions about Jennifer, Lily's testimony, Sophie's reactions, every detail that had haunted me for weeks. Okay, I'll need some documents, full police report, cremation papers, access to the messages you received. Dylan's financial history for the last 6 months. Anything you have. I spent the next few days gathering everything Raymond requested. Detective Hayes initially refused to give me a full copy of the police report. It's not standard procedure for civilians. But Raymond had connections and obtained it through official channels. I obtained the cremation paperwork directly from Oak Hill Crematorium. The manager, an elderly woman named Mrs. Patterson, was surprisingly helpful. Of course, dear, she said, when I explained that I needed copies for the private investigator. I completely understand. It's always difficult when there are doubts. Something about the way she said questions made me pause. Was there anything unusual about my son's cremation? Mrs. Patterson hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. I wouldn't say unusual exactly, just quick, very quick. Usually there's more paperwork, more waiting time, especially in suicide cases where there's no autopsy. But your daughter-in-law was very insistent. She had all the correct documents. She signed all the releases. She paid extra for expedited service. Extra? How much? $5,000 for emergency processing. $5,000 to quickly cremate a body that didn't exist, or a body that shouldn't be examined too closely. And did you see the body? I asked, my voice sounding strange. Mrs. Patterson seemed confused by the question. No, dear. Crematorists like me don't handle the remains directly before the process. That's done by the coroner and the funeral home. We receive the body already prepared in a sealed bag with all the documentation. Then we proceed with the cremation. So, you can't confirm that it was actually my son inside that bag. Mrs. Patterson was visibly uncomfortable. Mrs. Carter, I understand your pain, but we work with strict protocols. If the documents say it's your son, if the coroner confirmed the identification, then... But you didn't see. No, I didn't see it. I took the papers and left, hands shaking. Raymond worked quietly for a week. He sent me brief email updates, analyzing phone records, checking Golden Gate security cameras, investigating financial history, but nothing substantial. I kept getting sporadic messages from Dylan's number, always short, always vague. Trust in me. You will soon understand. Don't tell anyone, especially not Jennifer or Sophie. I didn't respond anymore. Raymond had instructed me not to engage, but also not to block the number. We need to let whoever it is think you're listening, he explained. Jennifer called daily, always with the same conversation. How was I? Had I received more messages? When would I stop this unhealthy obsession? Sophie flew back to Los Angeles after a week, but she also called regularly. Her calls had a more accusatory tone. Mom, you're wasting your savings on a fraud investigator. Dylan is dead. You need to accept it and move on. How do you know I hired an investigator? I asked once. Too brief a pause on the line. Jennifer told me. You talked to her about it, didn't you? I hadn't spoken. I hadn't told anyone about Raymond except Carol, who had recommended him to me, which meant someone was watching me, or my calls were being monitored. I told Raymond about this at our next meeting. Interesting, he murmured, taking notes. Very interesting. Mrs. Carter, I'll be straight with you. The more I dig, the more strange things I find. My heart raced. Like what? For starters, Dylan's finances. You said he lost $300,000 in the Ponzi scheme, right? Yes. That's why he was so desperate, according to Jennifer. Well, here's the thing. I've checked every bank record I can legally access. There's no evidence of $300,000, not even close. What do you mean? Raymond turned one of the monitors toward me, showing financial spreadsheets. Dylan and Jennifer's joint account held approximately $45,000 in January. 3 weeks before the alleged suicide, $40,000 was transferred to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The world tilted. Offshore? Yes, which is interesting because people who are about to kill themselves don't usually move money to international tax havens days before. Maybe he was protecting the money? For Jennifer and Lily? Possibly. But there's more. Over the past 6 months, there have been a number of strange transactions. Small, regular deposits, $500 here, $200 there, from multiple sources. All shell companies that don't appear to physically exist. Money laundering? Or payments for something. Services, information. Impossible to say without further investigation, and that would be illegal without a court order. My head was spinning. What about the Ponzi scam? Richard Thompson and the firm? Oh, that's real. Very real. Thompson was arrested in January, just like Jennifer said. Several victims, including employees of the firm. But Dylan wasn't one of them. Like this? Dylan had left Thompson and Associates 2 months before the collapse, in November. He accepted a position at a different firm, Barrett Financial Group. Better pay, even. Everything Jennifer had told me about Dylan losing everything, being unemployed, desperate. Was it a lie? But the lawsuits? Jennifer said 5 people were suing Dylan. Raymond shook his head. I checked the court records. There have been no civil lawsuits filed against Dylan Carter in the last 2 years in San Francisco County, not a single one. The room was spinning. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. So Jennifer lied about everything. Or, Raymond said carefully, she was deceived too. It's possible Dylan lied to her about his financial situation. Why? Why would a man lie to his wife that he was broke when he actually had a new job? Good question. And here's another. Why would a man with a stable job, money moving into offshore accounts, and no apparent reason for despair commit suicide? The silence between us was heavy with implications. Do you think he's alive? Wasn't a question. I think there are a lot of inconsistencies, and there's something else. Raymond opened a different folder. The Golden Gate Bridge security cameras. My heart raced. Did they catch anything? They caught a man jumping at 11:12 p.m. that night, 3 minutes before the time stated in the police report. So, there was a suicide. Yes, but here's the problem. The cameras on the bridge are high definition. I got access to the footage through a contact at the California Highway Patrol. And the man who jumped? Raymond paused, choosing his words carefully. I can't confirm for sure that it was Dylan. He turned on another monitor, showing a frozen image of security video. A man with his back to the bridge railing, dark against the night sky. It's hard to see details, Raymond admitted. The lighting is poor, the angle isn't ideal, but the man in the images is about 6'0" and weighs an estimated 180 pounds. Dylan was 6'0" and weighed 188 pounds according to his driver's license. 3 centimeters and 8 kilos difference. Could be an estimation error. I could. But look at this. He zoomed in. See the jacket the man is wearing? I looked closely. It was a dark jacket. It looked like leather. The jacket that was found at the scene and identified as Dylan's was a navy blue North Face. But in the footage, the jacket appears black. And the cut is different. This looks like leather, not nylon. Maybe it's just the lighting. Or he changed his jacket. Why would someone take off their jacket, leave it on the fence with their wallet and cell phone, put on a different jacket, and then jump? It doesn't make sense. I was starting to see where he was going with this. You think the man in the footage wasn't Dylan, that someone else jumped, and Dylan's belongings were planted to make it look like he was. It's a theory, but without a body, it's impossible to prove. What about cremation? The documents say a body was cremated. Raymond leaned back in his chair, rubbing his face with his hands. Here's where it gets really interesting and troubling. I obtained a complete copy of the coroner's report through, let's just say, not entirely official channels. And? What about the fingerprints used to identify the body? They were emailed digitally to the coroner, not collected from the body. My heart stopped. What? Someone sent Dylan's archived prints from the database, from the DMV specifically. The coroner compared them to the prints Jennifer provided. Remember, she brought personal items and declared a match. Case closed. But that means there was never a fingerprint check on a real body. Exactly. So maybe there never was a body. Or the body wasn't his. Raymond nodded slowly. It's a very real possibility. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope. Real, tangible, terrifying hope. Dylan is alive, I whispered. My son is alive. Mrs. Carter, Raymond said gently, don't jump to conclusions yet. All we have are inconsistencies and questions, not definitive answers. But you just said, I said there are problems with the official identification. But that doesn't prove Dylan is alive. It could simply mean there was negligence in the process, that the coroner cut corners, that protocols weren't followed properly. Or it could mean, I insisted, that my son faked his own death, that he's out there somewhere, alive, sending me messages. If he is, Raymond said, then we need to find out why. Because men don't fake their own deaths without a serious reason. They're usually running from something. Or someone. I left Raymond's office with a briefcase full of copies of the documents he had collected and a head full of terrifying possibilities. I drove home on autopilot, my mind racing with everything Raymond had revealed. The strange finances. The new job Jennifer never mentioned. The inconsistencies in the body's identification. The wrong man in the bridge footage. Each piece individually could be explained. But together they painted a picture that made no sense. Unless Dylan had planned the whole thing. I got home at 6 in the evening. I walked into the house, locked the door, 2 bolts and the chain, something I'd never done before, and dropped into the kitchen chair. My phone vibrated. Hello? Linda. Jennifer's voice was strange, tense, scared. I need you to come here now, to my house. It's about Lily. My blood ran cold. What happened to Lily? Just come, please, quickly. The connection was cut off. I grabbed my keys and ran to the car, Raymond's warning echoing in my head. If anything feels wrong. But it was Lily, my granddaughter. It didn't matter what games were being played. It didn't matter who was lying. If Lily was in danger, I had to go. What could have happened? An accident? Was she sick? Or Jennifer had found out that Lily told me about seeing Dylan in that car, and now she was punishing her for talking. I parked crookedly in front of the 2-story blue and white Victorian house, left the car barely locked, ran to the door, and rang the bell frantically. Jennifer opened it immediately, as if she had been waiting on the other side. She was normal, not hysterical, not crying, not visibly shaken. Just standing there with an expression I couldn't decipher. "Where's Lily?" I demanded, pushing open the door to enter. "What happened?" "Beautiful, calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down." My voice echoed through the silent house. "You said it was about Lily. Where is she?" "She's at my mom's house. She's fine. She's safe." The relief was so intense my legs nearly gave out. But then the anger came, fast and hot. "You made me think something had happened to her. Why would you do that?" "Because," Jennifer said calmly, closing the door behind me, "it was the only way to get you to come, without asking questions." Something in her tone made me pause. I looked around the room. Everything seemed normal. The beige couch, the family photos on the walls, Lily's toys neatly arranged in a corner. But something was off. A tension in the air. "Why did you need me to come?" "Because we need to talk, really talk. No interruptions, no you running off with crazy theories." Jennifer crossed her arms. "Sit down. I prefer to stand. Linda, please, have a seat." There was something in his voice. It wasn't a request, it was an order. Reluctantly, I sat on the edge of the couch, ready to get up and run if necessary. Jennifer sat in the chair opposite, watching us. For a long moment, we just sat there, the silence heavy between us. You hired a private investigator, she said finally. It wasn't a question. How do you know? Because I got a call today from Raymond Torres, asking questions about my finances, about my relationship with Dylan, about life insurance. My stomach tightened. Raymond shouldn't have contacted her. Not yet. Not without telling me first. He's doing his job, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. His work? Jennifer laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Linda, do you really think Dylan is alive? That I, what? Conspired to fake his death? For money? I don't know what to think. But there are inconsistencies, Jennifer. Things that don't make sense. Of course they don't make sense. Jennifer leaned forward, and there were tears in her eyes now. But I didn't know if they were real anymore. Nothing makes sense when someone you love kills themselves. We look for patterns where there are none. We look for reasons, for culprits, anything to make the pain make sense. It's not just the messages, I insisted. Dylan's finances. He wasn't broke, was he? He had a new job. At Barrett Financial. Jennifer froze. For just a second, but I saw it. How did you, Raymond, find out about this? So it's true. You lied about him losing everything, about being unemployed and desperate. I didn't lie, Jennifer protested, but her voice had lost its conviction. Dylan told me he'd lost everything, that he was out of work. If he was lying to me, what about the lawsuits? The 5 people who were supposedly suing him? Raymond checked. There are no lawsuits. Jennifer covered her face with her hands. When she spoke, her voice was muffled. He told me he was being sued. He showed me papers. They looked real. So Dylan was systematically lying to you about his entire life. And you didn't think it was strange? You didn't question it? Of course I did. Jennifer dropped her hands, revealing a face red with anger. But he was my husband, Linda, my daughter's father. I trusted him. And when things started to not make sense, when I tried to press for answers, he killed himself. Her voice broke on that last part, and for the first time, I thought that maybe Jennifer was as much a victim in this as I was, or that's exactly what she wanted me to think. What about life insurance? I asked more softly. Jennifer got up and walked over to a dresser, pulling some papers out of a drawer. She came back and tossed them in my lap. Here, since you and your investigator seem so interested. I picked up the papers. They were life insurance documents. Dylan had a $2 million policy through work. Beneficiary, Jennifer Carter. Payment date, 3 days after the funeral. $2 million, I whispered. Payable in 3 days. Yes, and before your paranoid brain starts spinning. No, I didn't kill my husband for money. The payment was quick because Sophie helped process the paperwork. She knows people at the insurance company. It was a family favor. Sophie. Of course it was Sophie. Where is that money now? Jennifer looked at me like I'd completely lost my mind. In the bank account. Where do you think? I'll need it to raise Lily alone now. Did you transfer to any offshore accounts? Cayman Islands, perhaps? Jennifer was very quiet. How do you know about the Cayman Islands? My heart raced. So you know about them. I know because Dylan had an account there. I found out after he died when I was sorting through his financial papers. There was $40,000 in an account I didn't even know existed. And what did you do with that money? Nothing yet. It's there. I don't even know how to access it. I need a lawyer specializing in international finance to handle this. Either she was lying, or she really didn't know about the strange transactions Raymond had uncovered. Jennifer, he said slowly, what really happened to Dylan in the months before he died? The truth. She let out a long sigh, sitting back down in the chair. For a moment, she seemed to have aged 10 years. The answers are right in front of you, Jennifer screamed. Dylan was depressed. He was lying about everything. He was under pressure, and he killed himself. It's horrible, it's unfair, it's the worst thing that could happen, but it's the truth. I don't believe you. The silence that followed was icy. Then I guess we have nothing more to talk about, Jennifer said, her voice dangerously calm. I'm going to ask you to leave my house. With pleasure. I stood up, heading towards the door. "And Linda," Jennifer called after me as I had my hand on the doorknob. "I don't want you anywhere near Lily until you get professional help. I won't let you fill her head with crazy theories." I turned slowly. "Are you stopping me from seeing my granddaughter?" "I'm protecting my daughter from a grandmother who is clearly having a mental breakdown." The anger exploded so intensely that I saw red. "You can't stop me from seeing Lily." "I can, and I will. And if I try, I can get a restraining order. Sophie already said she can get one quickly." "Of course. Sophie, always Sophie helping Jennifer." I left before I did something I regret. I slammed the door so hard the glass shook. When I got home, there was an unfamiliar car in front of the house. A shiny black BMW. Sophie got out of it. My oldest daughter looked impeccable as always. Perfectly tailored gray suit, high heels, hair pulled back in a sleek bun. She removed her sunglasses as she approached. "Hi, Mom. What do you want?" "Talk. Can I come in?" "No." Sophie sighed. "Mom, don't be difficult. It's important. I have nothing to talk to you about." "Yes, there is. About the investigator, about your accusations, about what you're doing to yourself and this family." "This family?" He laughs humorlessly. "You mean the family that conspired to defraud an insurance company? This family?" Sophie's face hardened. "Let's go in. Now. This isn't a conversation we should be having on the street." Reluctantly, I opened the door. Sophie walked in like she owned the place, leaving her expensive purse on the sofa and sitting in the armchair as if it were a courtroom and she were the judge. "So," she began, crossing her legs, "Raymond Torres, $150 an hour. How much have you spent so far? 5,000? 6? It's none of your business. It is when you're wasting the family savings on delusional conspiracy theories." "You're not delusional. Raymond has discovered things you and Jennifer clearly want to hide." "Like what?" Sophie challenged. "Come on, tell me, what are these great discoveries?" "Life insurance, paid in 3 days, sued by your ex-boyfriend who works at the insurance company." Sophie didn't seem the least bit surprised or disturbed. And that's highly irregular. Suspicious. You used personal connections to expedite a $2 million payment." "I used my professional connections," Sophie corrected coldly, "to help my widowed sister-in-law receive the money that was legally hers more quickly, so she could pay bills, raise my niece, rebuild her life. That's called being a competent lawyer, Mom. Not conspiracy." "What about the forged signatures?" Now Sophie paused, just for a split second. "But I saw it." "Which signatures?" "On the death certificate, on the identification papers. A handwriting expert said they were forged." "An expert your quack investigator hired. How convenient." Sophie leaned forward. "Mom, you know what I think? I think Raymond Torres is a con artist who realized he has a desperate client with savings to spend, so he makes up discoveries to keep her paying. He didn't make up the irregularities in Dylan's finances, the job Jennifer said he didn't have, the lawsuits that don't exist. These are verifiable facts. These are misunderstandings. Dylan was lying to Jennifer about a lot of things. We've already established that. He had clear issues, which led to his suicide. You keep saying that with such certainty, I observed, as if there were no possibility of anything else. Because there isn't. Mom, witnesses saw Dylan jump. His belongings were found. He was identified. He was cremated. He is dead. Then why are you so afraid of me continuing to investigate? Sophie was quiet for a long moment, studying me. I'm not scared. I'm sorry. Sorry to see my mother destroying herself with denial, spending money she can't afford to lose, alienating her family, losing her job. How do you know about my job? Janet called me. She's worried. Everyone's worried, Mom. Except you, apparently. Of course. Janet had called Sophie. My supervisor and my daughter were conspiring against me, or trying to help. I didn't know the difference anymore. I want you to go away, she said wearily. I'm not going. Not yet. Sophie opened her bag and took out some papers. Because I brought something you need to see. She spread the documents out on the coffee table. Official reports, stamps, signatures. Final medical examiner's report. Sophie pointed to the first one. Confirming identification of Dylan Carter through fingerprints and personal belongings. Fingerprints that were emailed, not collected from a body. Because there was no body to collect. The currents carried it out to sea. How many times does this need to be explained? She pointed to the next document. Death certificate, signed by Dr. Robert Chen, Chief Medical Examiner for the County of San Francisco. Cause of death, multiple blunt force trauma consistent with a fall from a great height. Based on what if there was no body? On circumstantial evidence, on witnesses, on standard protocol for deaths on the Golden Gate Bridge where the body is not recovered. Sophie continued with the next paper. Insurer's report. Full investigation of the case before payment. Confirming that the death was not fraudulent, that there was no reason to deny the claim. In 3 days? A full investigation in 3 days? The investigation began immediately after receiving the death certificate. They confirmed it with the police. They verified there were no signs of fraud. The payment was approved. I simply facilitated the administrative processing to be faster. There is no crime involved. There are if you forged signatures. I didn't forge anything, Sophie shouted, losing her composure for the first time. She took a deep breath, composing herself. Your expert is wrong, or lying to you. The signatures are legitimate, and I can prove it. She tossed another document onto the table. Affidavit from Dr. Chen confirming that he personally signed all documents related to Dylan Carter's case, dated yesterday. I got it for you. I took the paper. It looked official, letterhead, signed. Dr. Chen signed the papers, Sophie said firmly. No one falsified anything. Your investigator is wrong. I looked at all those official documents. So convincing, so professional. And for the first time, doubt truly consumed me. What if I was wrong? What if Dylan really was dead? What if I was destroying my life and family for nothing? Mom, Sophie said more gently, I understand the grief. I understand the anger. After Dad died, you were so lost. Remember? You insisted the doctors had misdiagnosed him, that the treatment had been inadequate, that if they had done things differently, he would be alive. I remembered. It had been so hard to accept that Robert was really leaving. Eventually you accepted it, Sophie continued, and you healed. Not completely, you never heal completely, but you moved on. You built a life, and you need to do that again now. It's not the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. It's denying the inevitable because it hurts too much to accept. Tears burned in my eyes. But the messages, they're scammers. Horrible people exploiting your grief. Block the number. Report it to the police. Let it go. I looked at my daughter. So beautiful, so confident, so certain. I wanted to believe her. I wanted her to be right. Because if she were, it meant I wasn't surrounded by liars. It meant my family wasn't conspiring against me. But it also meant that Dylan was really dead, and I would never see him again. I need time, I whispered, to process everything. Sure, but Mom, stop paying the investigator. You're throwing money away, and please consider therapy. Just a few sessions, to have someone objective to talk to. She got up, grabbed her bag. I love you, Mom. I know it doesn't seem like it with all this fighting, but I do, and I just want you to heal. She kissed my forehead and left, leaving me alone with a table full of official documents and a head full of doubt. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was really crazy. I was on the kitchen floor with Raymond's file open, trying to find a thread of logic, when the doorbell rang like a gunshot. I looked through the peephole, and the world contracted. Sophie, impeccable, next to Jennifer, and Detective Marcus Hayes, the three of them, together, like a walking verdict. I opened it by reflex. Linda. Sophie entered first, her voice soft as if she had already made up her mind for me. We need to talk. Now. Jennifer followed, arms crossed as if bracing herself against collapse. Hayes carried an official black briefcase, that same practiced neutrality that made me want to scream. What is this? I asked, already knowing. An intervention. Jennifer said bluntly. For you, for Lily. Sophie placed her bag on the table and began lining up documents like magic trick cards, death certificate, coroner's report, internal memos, attachments with blue and red stamps. Her organization was infuriating. Everything laminated, numbered, with post-its with colored tabs. Formality, suffocating reality. Mrs. Carter. Hayes opened the folder and placed a report on top of everything. The county police requested additional testing. There was a reanalysis of prints, cross-checking with DMV records, and robust circumstantial confirmation. He touched the paper with his fingertip. Conclusion: it's definitely your son. I felt like someone had turned off the light in the room for a second. Robust circumstantial, I repeated, my voice harsh, disembodied. Sophie slid another document toward me, her impeccable fingernail tapping the baseboard. Here, Mom, an affidavit from Dr. Chen, the medical examiner. He attests to the chain of custody of the latent prints and the presumed causality. We also have the memorandum of understanding between the insurance company and the medical examiner's office, which allows for expedited peer review in suicide cases at Golden Gate. It's procedure, legal, documented. She spoke as if I were taking an exam on her. Jennifer placed her hand on Sophie's shoulder, a gesture of alliance that cut me to the quick, and turned to me. Linda, we love you. But you're scaring Lily with these theories. I haven't slept in days. She wakes up crying. His voice trailed off. Maybe it's time to seek therapy. There's no shame in that. Hayes rested his fists on the table, close enough for me to smell his coffee. I know it hurts, he said quietly, but there's no basis for reopening anything. Case closed. If we insist, we could jeopardize real investigations into other families. Sophie replied, and this private investigator, Mom, he's taking advantage of you. A white envelope. I did the math. You've already spent $5,000. And what do you have? Zero material evidence, just inconsistencies. Inconsistencies, a cursed word. In oncology, inconsistency sometimes meant a tumor that didn't show up on the first scan and killed you on the second. Did you read it all? I asked, looking at Sophie, then Hayes. Line by line? I understand enough, Sophie countered, with that legal tone that confuses those who don't speak Latin. Res judicata, prima facie, due process. Mom, you're not in a TV episode. You're in acute grief. Jennifer hugged me sideways. The smell of expensive laundry. Her voice was like glass. I don't want to lose you too, Linda. The room spun a little. There were stamps. There were signatures. There were the police. There was my daughter, and there was me, with a folder that seemed to get thinner and thinner. What if I really was crazy? I felt doubt creep in, silent, like water under a door. I thought about Raymond. I thought about Lily with the bear. I thought about the message in the blue vase, about everything that could be true or fabricated. My chest tightened. Maybe, I heard myself say, as if I were someone else, maybe I should stop. Sophie touched my hand, triumphant and tender at the same time. Thanks. Hayes gathered up the documents with final gestures, the ticking of the wall clock punctuating the closing. Send me any new messages. I'll forward them to the cybercrimes department, he said. They left. Jennifer was the last. In the doorway, she whispered, Please block the number. For our sake. I closed the door. I leaned my forehead against the cold wood. And for a whole minute, I believed them. The decision to stop lasted less than a night shift. Raymond called me that same afternoon. Linda, I can't move forward without more payment. I'm sorry. I looked at the bank statement. 5,000 less. A void that wasn't just money. Okay, I replied. Thanks for trying. I hung up. The silence weighed heavily. The house seemed larger and the air thinner. I went to the window. San Francisco had that pale, late-afternoon hue that always reminded me of a hanging IV. I was ready to choose ignorance. Sometimes anesthesia is the only remedy. When the phone vibrated with an unfamiliar number, 858 at first, San Diego. Hello? The voice on the other end trembled like someone speaking while looking over their shoulder. "Mrs. Carter? My name is Carlos. I work at the port of San Diego. I need to talk to you about your son." The entire body became hollow. "Who are you? How did you get my number?" "Someone passed by, said you were looking for him." A short pause, filled with street, wind, and metal. "I saw your son. He's alive." I held the counter with both hands. "Carlos, please tell me everything." The words came in blocks. 2 weeks ago, early morning shift, strange movement at berth 14, a container with no clear paperwork heading for a semi-trailer heading for the border. 3 men, a driver with a neck tattoo speaking rapid Spanish. Inside, 4 people. One of them Dylan. Bruised, with a cut on his eyebrow, his hands tied in front of him. Carlos said he heard it. He begged, "Call my mother, Linda Carter, please." Carlos's voice cracked. "They gave me $1,000 to keep quiet. I took it. I have 2 children, but..." He sighed. "I haven't been able to sleep since." I closed my eyes. My whole body felt like it wanted to cry and run at the same time. "Can you describe who was with him? License plates? Company on the container?" The truck had an old sticker on it. Vibrated Logistics. The license plate, I think it was from Arizona. One of the guys called the other Rafa. They said Tijuana and Bodega. That was it. I wrote everything down, my handwriting shaking the paper. "Carlos, can I pass your contact information to an investigator? He's serious. He's not the police." "You can, but please, don't tell anyone my last name. If they find out, Silence. I have family." I promised protection I couldn't guarantee. I hung up and dialed Raymond so quickly I dialed the wrong number twice. "Beautiful? We have a witness, San Diego, Porto. He saw Dylan, alive, going in a container to Tijuana." Raymond didn't ask if I was sure. He just said, "Send me the contact, now." It was 3 hours of me walking in circles as the sun went down. The phone finally rang. "Carlos is legit," Raymond said, his voice carrying that electric energy of a good track. "He really does work at the port. The schedule matches. The description of berth 14 matches public images from the day. And what's more, cross-referencing the details he gave with the databases I have access to, I found transfers." I sat as if my legs had disappeared. "What kind of transfers?" $50,000, coming from an account listed in the name of a consulting firm. He cleared his throat. "Connected to Sophie. The heir is gone." "My daughter?" "The account is corporate, but the beneficiary is a known border smuggler. Nickname Rafa. The same name Carlos heard. Date 2 days before the container was shipped." I remained silent. I felt, with clinical clarity, the click of a piece you didn't want to fit together. "What does that mean, Raymond?" He took a slow breath, choosing his words like someone handling flammable material. "It means your son didn't fake his death. He was kidnapped, and someone paid to get him out of the country. The connections I've been tracing, Linda, everything points to Jennifer and Sophie being involved. Fake documents, expedited insurance payments, and now border logistics. Dylan is alive," his voice firmed, "but he's a prisoner." The walls seemed to recede, the world shrinking until it fit within one word: prisoner. I saw Lily clutching the bear. I saw Jennifer saying, "Block the number." I saw Sophie with the stamps and the calm of someone who already knows the outcome. I saw Detective Hayes with his robust circumstantial evidence. And underneath it all, I heard the message that had taken my breath away in the kitchen days ago. "Mom, I'm alive." "What do we do now?" I asked, with a new, clear serenity that only appears when doubt dies. Raymond replied without hesitation. "First, don't confront anyone. Not Sophie, not Jennifer, not Hayes. Second, I'm going to San Diego later today. I'll speak to Carlos personally and pull up toll cameras from I-5 to San Isidro. Third, I'll contact someone in Tijuana. If the container crossed, it left a trail. And me? You're going to stay alive and quiet. Change your routine, don't answer unknown numbers, and keep your messages from Dylan active. If there's anything new, forward it to me immediately. And? Beautiful? Yes? Congratulations. You trusted the right instinct. I hung up. I went to the bedroom and grabbed a small suitcase. It wasn't courage, it was necessity. I packed 2 changes of clothes, documents, the silver necklace Dylan had given me, and Raymond's briefcase. I locked the house, turned the key twice, and went downstairs like someone walking down a hospital corridor to the ICU. Before getting into the car, the phone vibrated. Dylan's number. Mom, don't trust anyone. Don't listen to the police. Go south. I looked up at the late afternoon sky. The cool Bay Area breeze bit at my skin, but inside I was warm, straight, alive. I turned the key. I'm coming, son, I whispered, the word son stuck in my throat like an old stitch. Mommy's coming to get you. The engine responded. The doubt remained in the house. In the rearview mirror, San Francisco shrank to a glow in the fog. On the road, hope had a shape, a straight line to the south. Raymond's call came at 5:42 a.m. Odd before dawn, and his voice was already moving like a siren in the hallway. Linda, the FBI came in. Carlos gave his formal statement. We have the wire transfers. The federal judge signed the warrant at 5:11 a.m. The joint team will cross now. Are you with me? I am, I replied, and my whole body responded with it, as if my heart had remembered to beat usefully. I am. In the lobby of the San Isidro Hotel, everything smelled of burnt coffee and rain. Through the window, the border was a line of lights. Raymond emerged wearing a cap, unshaven, and a badge hanging from his head. Here, he handed me a disposable cell phone. This is the only number that will ring you today. If it rings, answer. It could be the lead agent. I nodded and realized my hands weren't shaking. When pain finds direction, it becomes strength. In the parking lot, a black SUV waited. 2 officers, McKenna, broad-shouldered, and Salazar, the watchful eyes of those who've seen the worst, greeted us with the kind of professionalism that turns fear into protocol. Ms. Carter, we're keeping you in San Isidro. The JTTF has crossed paths with the State Guard. Probable location, fortified house near the beach, Rosarito. Name of contact on the other side, Rafa. Salazar paused. Rafa is bad, very bad. I just need you to bring my son back, I replied firmly. On the radio, voices cut off by interference. Bravo 3, affirmative. North team deployed. Visual contact with target. No civilians within the perimeter. My burner phone vibrated at 7:19. A third agent, his voice almost breathless. Ms. Carter? Agent Pierce. We're about to initiate the entry. Will you accept the video call when we confirm stabilization? I accept, I accept, I accept. Raymond squeezed my shoulder. Breathe, Linda. The call came 3 minutes later. The screen shook, a narrow hallway, peeling walls, shouts in Spanish, an internal gate being broken down, a metallic boom, dust. A dog barked so loud it sounded like it was ripping through the ceiling. Clear! Someone shouted. Final room! The camera turned left and entered a room that was more like a cell. A thin mattress on the floor, a bucket, a window sealed with wood. And there, in the shadows, chained to a pipe, was a gaunt man with a weeks-old beard, his knees embedded in the cement. Hands out, another agent ordered. The man stood up slowly, as if every millimeter hurt. And then his eyes. I would recognize those eyes in the darkness of the ocean floor. Dylan! Came out of me like a prayer. Dylan, look here, Agent Pierce said, holding his cell phone closer. Your mother is on the line. His eyes went from the camera to infinity, as if the word mother came from far away. Tears came without warning. Mom? The voice was an open wound. Mom, it's me. It's me, Mom. It's me, my love. I was already crying uncontrollably. It's me. I'm here. He tried to stand up straight and nearly fell. The officer caught him, removing the padlock with a key. When the chain fell to the ground, the metallic sound was the sound of my life coming back. I tried to warn you, Dylan sobbed. I was secretly texting you. I swear I tried. "You did it, son. You did it. I heard you." In the corner of the screen, a painting of Jesus with open arms flashed by, crooked on the wall. I felt a shiver. A tacky image in a cheap frame seemed more sacred to me than any cathedral. The officer turned the camera slightly to check Dylan's pulse. His eyebrow was cut, a bruise on his ribs was old, and the marks on his ankle where the iron had been rubbing against his skin for weeks. "Blood pressure, but stable," I heard Pierce say to someone off-screen. "He needs fluids. Let's evacuate." Before, Dylan leaned in too close to the screen, the pixel bursting into his eyes. "Mom, don't trust them. Don't trust them. They were going to kill me as soon as the insurance was in place. Sophie said she needed to wait for the objections to settle. Those were the words. Decant." I clamped my hand over my mouth. Decant. Lawyer jargon. The word cut into my stomach like a scalpel. On the other side, an agent raised his voice. "In the truck. Move it." The image shook, went down the stairs, the door opened, light. For a second, I saw a squiggle of the sea in the background. The sound of the waves, very close. Someone ran past, shouting, "Police! Ground!" The outer gate slammed shut. The camera returned to my son's face. "Mom," he said softly, almost childishly. "Wait for me?" "Always. I've always waited. And I'm here." The call dropped. I stood there, the phone hot in my hand, as the entire world silently rearranged itself. Raymond breathed, a laugh that held no humor. "Let's go to the rendezvous point. They're transferring to the base in San Diego." "He said they," I said, still staring into space. In the plural, without fear, without hesitation. He said they. "I heard," Raymond wrote on his arm with a pen. "Them." And he said, "Decant. That doesn't come from a thug. It comes from someone who's thinking of a way out." In the base's makeshift medical clinic, the light was too white. Dylan lay there, his IV dripping in, his beard hastily trimmed, a blue blanket draped over his shoulders. He saw me through the door and tried to get up. "No, no," I ran, touching his face with both hands. It was the face of my baby and of a man who had crossed the desert. "You smell like home," he murmured, laughing and crying at the same time. "You smell like cinnamon and medicine. I dreamed about that smell." I kissed his forehead, like when he had a fever at 7. "Tell me," I asked, "from the beginning. I can handle it." He closed his eyes, organizing words like someone organizing wounds. "Jennifer found the old policy. 2 million. I didn't even remember it was still valid. Sophie," he swallowed hard. "Sophie said she would help me clear my name, that she would protect the family. The night before the suicide, they called me in to talk. Jennifer brought wine. I woke up in a van, smelling of gasoline. Sophie held my knee and said, 'If you cooperate, everyone wins.' I asked, 'Cooperate with what?' And then, Mexico, warehouse, then this house. They filmed me unconscious and sent it to someone. Sophie came every 2 weeks, with spreadsheets. She talked to the guys like they were interns, deadlines, risks, compliance, litigation window. And Jennifer," the voice trailed off, "looked at me like I was a little safe, a thing, an investment. 'They were going to kill you,' I repeated, so that the universe would register the phrase. As soon as the money became irreversible." Her word. Sophie said, "The insurance needs to settle down on the balance sheet." I didn't understand. I just wanted out. And the messages? "A new guard, young son." I promised to give him my TV, my watch, anything. He left me alone for 5 minutes with an old cell phone. I memorized his number, and I sent it. When he left, I thought I'd convicted him too. "The conviction goes to the right people," Raymond said, appearing on our left, his voice low. "And it goes quickly." Dylan looked at him. "Are you Raymond?" His eyes sparkled. "Thank you. I heard Sophie talking about you on the phone." "That stubborn little fat boy," she said. "Mommy will spend every last coin and find nothing." Raymond smiled sadly. "Stubborn fatty, I accept. The rest we'll take back to court." Agent Pierce walked in with a clipboard. "Mrs. Carter, we need you to verify calls, messages, and timelines. The sooner the better. The window for arrest is open." "I give everything," I replied. "I have everything." Before they left, Dylan pulled my hand. "Mom, Lily, you're with me now, and you're safe." He closed his eyes, and a soundless sob shook his entire body. I ran my finger over the scars the metal had left on his wrist, as if I could erase them. "I want to go home," he whispered. "Even if it hurts, I just want to go back." "You're back," I replied, resting my forehead against his. "We'll rebuild the rest, brick by brick." When I left the clinic, the sky had broken, and a ray of sunlight cut through the wet asphalt of the base like a path. My phone vibrated again. A message from Agent Salazar. "Search executed. Warrant served in SF. 2 arrested." I took a deep breath, my chest aching like after running uphill. I wrote back with hands less shaky than earlier in the day. "I'm ready. My son is alive." Now, the whole truth. The months leading up to the trial were a mix of hell and rebirth. The FBI completed the operation in a matter of weeks, but the weight of the trauma took time to settle. Dylan spent 2 months hospitalized, intravenous nutrition, physical therapy sessions, and long interviews with forensic psychologists. Sometimes he would wake up screaming in the middle of the night, calling for me, thinking I was still in the basement. I would run to the room, hold his hand, and repeat like a mantra, "It's over, son. They won't hurt you anymore. It's over." But deep down, I knew that "it's over" was premature. Judgment was yet to come, and with it, the final reckoning. Meanwhile, Jennifer and Sophie were preemptively arrested after a coordinated operation in San Francisco. The news exploded. Lawyer and mother implicated in multi-million-dollar fraud and air kidnapping. Reporters camped outside my building. Some wanted interviews, others just a portrait of the mother who faced it all. I turned them all down. I didn't want to make headlines. I wanted justice. In the first interrogations, Sophie tried to defend herself with the same cold blood that made her feared in the courts. There is no evidence that the body found is not that of Dylan Carter. My mother was emotionally unstable and easily manipulated by an unscrupulous private investigator. This is all a legal misunderstanding. But when the FBI presented the recordings, her voice negotiating with Rafa, the exact amount for the asset removal, the veneer fell. Jennifer broke first. She confessed to the kidnapping, the staging, the fake body. She tried to pin the blame entirely on Sophie. "It was her. She planned it all. I just wanted to pay off my debts." The daughter coldly responded to the prosecutor, "My mom always needed someone to clean up her messes. I was just efficient." Mother and daughter, who had protected each other for years, now devoured each other in front of the agents. And I, from afar, watched, not with anger, but with a kind of hollowing sadness. During those months, Dylan began to relearn how to live. He drove again, made his own coffee, laughed with Lily in the park. Sometimes, though, I'd see him standing there, staring into space. "What's up, son?" I was just wondering how someone who slept over at my house could plan this for so long. I had no answer. We received anonymous threats, encrypted messages, and strange looks on the street. Raymond became ever-present, like a faithful shadow. He himself helped compile all the evidence the FBI would use in the prosecution. And in March, finally, we received the date, October 8th, 2024. The federal trial would be in San Francisco. The day arrived with the smell of the sea and a cold wind. I got ready in silence, wearing the same silver necklace Dylan had given me when I was 18. The same one I'd worn to his mock funeral. Before we left, Lily appeared with the brown bear in her arms. "Grandma, Daddy's going to win today, right?" "Yes, my love, Daddy wins today." In the courtroom, the cameras seemed like flashlights. The Carter case had become a spectacle. But I could see only 2 figures across the room, Jennifer and Sophie, handcuffed, each plunged into their own abyss. Jennifer had been crying since she walked in. Sophie stood her ground. A reporter whispered behind me, "Look at her. She still thinks she's in charge." But I knew that look. It wasn't haughtiness. It was disguised fear. Prosecutor David Green opened the hearing firmly. Your Honor, this is not just a case of fraud. It is a case of moral corruption, of a plan devised with legal precision and executed with surgical coldness. He pointed to the defendants. These two women deceived the state, the authorities, and most horribly, they deceived a mother's heart. The evidence paraded like daggers. The bank transfers, the fake contract, the correspondence between Sophie and the insurance company, the recovered audio. One of the agents played the recording made during the raid on Rosarito's house. The image of Dylan in chains. The room fell silent. Jennifer was crying convulsively. Sophie was breathing rapidly, her eyes watering, but still not giving up. When Dylan was called to the stand, the silence was so thick you could hear the judge's clock ticking. He stood, his posture firm, his face serene. Mr. Dylan Carter, do you confirm that you were kidnapped by your mother and sister? The prosecutor asked. I confirm. Can you tell us, in your own words, what happened? Dylan took a deep breath. They drugged me. I remember the bitter taste of wine. I woke up in a van. When I tried to react, Sophie looked at me and said, Don't worry, it's just business. Some jurors looked at each other. He continued, They kept me locked up for months. Jennifer came sometimes, brought me food. Sophie didn't. She only showed up to check protocols, as she called them. I was an investment to them. And what did you feel when you discovered that your mother was alive and looking for you? His voice wavered. Hope and shame, because I thought I'd never see you again. I closed my eyes and let the tears come. The prosecutor thanked him, and Dylan returned to the bench beside me. The judge took silent notes, her eyes fixed on the defendants. Then the defense took its turn. Sophie's lawyer tried to argue temporary insanity, citing financial pressure and post-traumatic emotional distress. She lost her father early, Your Honor. You understand what that can do to a child. But the judge looked up and replied dryly, Losing your father doesn't make you a kidnapper. The lawyer fell silent. Jennifer tried to speak. I just wanted to protect my daughter. She convinced me it was for everyone's own good. I didn't know he would suffer so much. The prosecutor interrupted. You said, on the recording, after the money comes in, we'll settle this once and for all. Is that protect? She didn't answer. After 7 days of trial, the jury retired. They were the longest hours of my life. Dylan paced. Lily slept in my lap. When the jury returned, everyone's breath caught. Guilty, the spokesman said firmly. On all counts, Jennifer screamed. Sophie said nothing, just let a tear fall. The judge adjusted her glasses and read the sentence. Jennifer Carter, sentenced to 25 years without parole. Sophie Carter, sentenced to 30 years, permanently disqualified from practicing law. He paused. You're not just criminals. You're monsters who tried to turn love into profit. The words echoed through the room like thunder. Jennifer turned to Lily, who was crying. Mommy loves you, honey, she cried. Dylan held her back. She's not your mother, Lily. She never was. The officers pulled Jennifer away. Sophie, handcuffed, looked at me. Mom, please. I stood up. I no longer have a daughter named Sophie. My voice was firm, without a tremor. You died when you decided to kill your brother for money. She looked away, defeated. When we left the courthouse, the Pacific wind was cool, but light. For the first time in years, I felt the air rush in without pain. Dylan held my hand. Lily held his. Raymond walked behind, silently. What now, Mom? Dylan asked, looking up at the orange sky. Now, son, we rebuild, brick by brick. He smiled, a shy, lively smile. Lily jumped between us. Are we making pancakes tomorrow? Come on, honey, I said, laughing. Pancakes and laughter. And as the sun set over the bridge, I realized this wasn't the end. It was a new beginning, because finally, justice had been served, and we were alive.